Hey guys, it's Crimson Gray, and as promised, the video did really well. So here's part two of just me and Axarien talking about the process it took to create Val Serano. And in the midst of me recording and post, we are well on our way to create another expansion, the first expansion for Val, A Pirate Goes to College. It will be pretty much a huge overhaul of the main quest beats of Val Serano with a full new dungeon, a bunch of custom ambient works made by me with using free source assets that I will link somewhere in the video or in the description. And there is also, by the title of A Pirate Goes to College, a bunch of College of Winterhold add-ons to Val. Obviously, by the length of this video, is really long, so I'm not going to waste too much time, and I'm going to go straight to the main conversation. But I do want to preface, as you could see on the screen, yeah, this is the best I could salvage out of the audio over a Discord call with really shoddy setup between both of us. And it's basically going to be like listening to a 1950s radio broadcast, or even more accurate, a VHS recording from 1990. So if you're down with that, I've made sure that aesthetics are appropriate for such with what I'm going to be adding to it. If you're not down for that, well, sorry, but there's no real behind the scenes that me or Axarien have time to record for the base release of Val Serano. Maybe after the expansion comes out, we will, but yeah, hopefully you enjoy. Either way, I figure I'd rather keep my end of the bargain. Thank you guys so much for the love and appreciation, and I'll talk to you after.
Okay, so I am recording. So, yeah, I probably should have played Skyrim, and I didn't, because I didn't know how to pronounce. I think the one name I want to say with you that was, like, the most egregious that I couldn't pronounce was, Arander, I want to say.
Arander?
I thought it was, like, I don't know if it was Arander. It was, like, the name that started with E-R-A-N-D-E-R. And I thought it was like Aran.
Yeah, Arander.
D-U-R. Yeah. I remember pronouncing it in so many different ways until I think it was either Arander or something that I would never have guessed by its pronunciation of like how it was spelled.
I can't even remember how many you tried, because there were a few NPC names where you did multiple takes of different pronunciation, giving up in despair. And I ended up with, Val pronouncing the names 3 different ways, like he had just given up if I wasn't careful when I was editing takes.
Yeah, we definitely, I think the system that we found out that we were really confident in was, we're going to find a lazy name picker. I think that's what you called it.
Lazy Voice Finder. I got to give props to the Lazy Voice Finder tool. So I'd pull up Lazy Voice Finder, and I would start searching for, ideally, the NPC introduced themselves, and I would send you those voice clips. Yeah. But sometimes nobody pronounced it at all. Like, it wasn't in the game. It was just, written somewhere in a book. And I think we came down with, if no one has ever pronounced it, you can't be wrong.
Yeah, true. And you know what's so funny? I think there was one, I think it was like a Dwemer Ruin, I want to say, in Solstheim DLC.
Oh, yeah.
Where, I forgot what it was like the most random jumble of, like, letters to where I was about to voice act, and I think you could read it in, like, the blooper, you could hear it in the blooper, rather, where I was just like, I was doing some voice like, I guess we're about to head to, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, no, like the character break. There were a few where you gave me the blooper, like, in character of, like, just Val's reading some book, and he's like, the fuck is this?
Yeah. Oh, that was the that one thing that you wanted me to reference that was apparently more let's just say saucy than the Argonian maid. I remember that. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Oh geez, we're into Kirkbride lore now, right? Yeah. So this is like getting into a new topic. Yeah, you had to experience references to Michael Kirkbride lore with the Sermons of Vivek.
Yeah. Yeah,
so for someone who's not only have you not played Elder Scrolls, but I'm sure you have not been reading Michael Kirkbride's ramblings.
Dude,
so yeah.
The most I know about Kirkbride was and it was like 2 months after I was already doing Val, and I was by script 3, maybe script 2, I don't know. But I looked up Kirkbride because of how much I was a huge influence for Val.
Yeah.
And I came across the one infamous video about like the hypothetical future that he wrote after Morrowind, where all the Dunmer are on the fucking moon and they have like TV head boxes and Vivek's just chilling. And I'm just like, what is happening? What? I had no idea this was the kind of guy that was writing Elder Scrolls, because I grew up on Oblivion.
Yeah.
Just the so my take on the Elder Scrolls was way different than Morrowind or any of the prior titles.
Yeah, well, so it's funny that you mentioned that. So Val is so heavily informed by Dunmer lore, and because my first Elder Scrolls game was Morrowind, and that immediately meant I had to go back to the old lore from Morrowind, and then when I couldn't find the exact thing I needed or wanted to play with something creatively, I went to Kirkbride's lore. Not super heavy, but at least to inform the writing. And that meant, in terms of understanding Val and how he ticks, I had to drag you along for the ride with me.
Yeah, and honestly, well, I can't really sit there and say that I'm a Morrowind lore expert by the end of this project at all. I'm really not. So, I definitely, I think ironically, in a weird way, I've grown a new love for Skyrim to where I am playing Skyrim, obviously.
Yeah.
Because of this project I took. So.
Well, when you start developing an appreciation of 80s and 90s action movies, then I'll know I'm in your head for good.
To be fair, I was always about 80s, 90s films. I think I was just a little different from you. Like, I grew up on Jacob's Ladder and Hitcher. I don't know if I've ever talked to you. I think I talked to you about Hitcher.
A little bit.
I mean, yeah.
I've seen a lot of the stuff you have. The stuff that's stuck in my head was a little bit more in the Princess Bride, Indiana Jones, Die Hard realm.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be another thing in the tip is watch these films and be point and click protagonist cheesy. I'm gonna call it like point and click cheese. That's gonna be the tip.
Oh yeah, well related to that tip, I think there was something I told you, like channel the energy from the Princess Bride, because these are characters that take themselves very seriously, but the framing of the mod does not take itself seriously at all.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to almost have like an isometric meta humor about how serious your character wants to be versus how they come off in a way. Is that like a fair assessment?
I would say too, but you have to completely take out the irony in the performance. Like, you have to commit to the performance for the character, because they're not doing a fourth wall break or a wink and a nod. The mod is doing that, and it's a weird little line to play around with.
Right. That actually gets into, I think, the heart of what got me onto the project, which was obviously tip 2, no stereotypes, where, we both, I think, without even talking to each other at all first, we both were like, we don't want to fucking deal with a stereotypical pirate, like, yar har tweedledee.
Yeah.
Like, when I saw the audition for Val Serano, and I saw like the character archetype I had in my head, I didn't know how on point I was going to be with my presentation of what I thought Val read like in terms of his voice, his cadence, his personality. And it was a shot in the dark for me. Like I'm going to read out loud, because I can't ever remember my own writings to save my life.
Relatable.
It was just like, I didn't want a yar har matey goofy voice. I didn't want something cookie cutter. So I just did what I wanted to hear a pirate sound like. And I still feel like it was a weird fate that kind of pulled me here, where like once I met you then were like, oh yeah, I heard you from like the finalist casting of Kaiden. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I saw your voice. I'm like,
I did hear you. You were one of the finalists for the Kaiden Revoice mod, and I had listened to all of that, following just the Kaiden multiverse in general for a couple of years now, and interested in all those projects. And then, I was writing Val, had been for months by then, and I was thinking about, well, what kind of voice does do I want Val to have? Because like you, I don't like the. Well, it wouldn't have worked for the mod to have a sort of stereotypical Yarhar, Métis, Avast, Yolan Lubbers type of pirate voice. It just wouldn't have worked. It wasn't what I was going for. And you just got that organically from the audition lines that I had put there. And I had heard you before. I had hoped that you would audition for the role. And I was so excited when I heard it. Like, it was really cool. And when we got to talking about it, I had in mind far more a fast-talking con man than an actual pirate. Like, it's almost an accident that Val is a pirate. That those were the circumstances of the world he lives in. What he is a fast-talking con man and a charming rogue, and he happens to have been engaged in piracy because that's the criminal enterprise that he had access to. But he was far more, Rusty and Danny from Ocean's 11 than, say, Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right. And that's what I was really excited about knowing, was that when you gave me all those movies and stuff, even if they weren't my cup of tea, it was like, oh my god, whoa, I did not expect Val as a pirate companion to have these influences. Like, if you were to ever pitch to anyone, like, oh, I want to make a pirate Skyrim companion, everybody would be like, oh, you want Jack Sparrow?
No,
want, like, they would think of the most Disney, you know what I mean? Like, fantastical presentation of one.
Yeah, and to me, as a writer, that's just not who the character was. He just wanted to be somebody else. And, this is probably a whole other tidbit here, but, coming from writing what you know, I wrote Val as a person first. His early drafts, he didn't have what came into this isn't a video about the writing process, but it's kind of connected to the performance. Like, Val is his personality first. He's not the identity of his job, being a pirate. He's not male. He's not Nord. He's not all these other things. He's just his core first, and then all the other things took shape around it after that core identity of who the character is going to be came forward.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, while it isn't like about the writing process for Val, I think that is what makes this project so life-changing for me, is the fact that it did have to involve the writing process. That creatively, in terms of the performance that you allowed me to have, I also had a lot of leeway into the creative process of where Val's entire story narrative would jump into at times, right? Like, with additions that I recommended. And I think that's something that, again, that's a dream that I wanted. I had dreams of being an actor that not only was an actor, but was also co-writing with the content that I want to see to fruition. A good example of this, I think I talked with you a couple times. There's a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon. It's called Departed. It was like this gangster double cross film.
Yeah.
And there's a famous behind the scenes interview with Matt Damon talking about Jack Nicholson walking up to the director and literally beat for beat giving the director an entire scene as an idea, like a literal springboard pitch that ended in the movie as like the most classic part of the film. And I'm not going to spoil what it is, because I do want people to look it up. But it's like the coolest shit that I've always wanted to be able to do, even if voice acting at the end of the day is not as directly, I guess, what's the word I'm using? Directly impactful to like a set of a film. Right.
Right. You don't have the physical performance that goes along with the audio performance. But in a lot of ways that, because you don't have mocap and facial expression stuff in what we're doing for Skyrim and an amateur project versus, a big game studio, the voice acting work it's almost like a radio drama when you're doing, voice acting for an older game like Skyrim on an indie project, because so much of the heavy lifting of the character's emotional performance has to be carried by the actor that's doing the role. And I feel cosmically lucky that we connected on this project, because you are a writer and you had this additional creative perspective and skill set that you brought to the project. So it inspired me. I think I had maybe just under 1,000 lines written for the mod, when I cast you. And then as we started working together with inspiration from you, I was able to pretty much double the size of the script, from getting such a better idea of who Val is, how he reacts, how he speaks, could hear it in my head much more quickly, with you working. And then I felt also not working in a vacuum. I had a creative partner that could give me feedback, that could pitch ideas, that could workshop things with me and help me feel confident that I was staying on track and true to the character, because, it was just an exponential improvement in the creative process just by having you on board.
I really do appreciate that, especially because I think I've talked a lot about this, and to you this will sound like a broken record, but I have had so many emotional situations when voicing those scripts, especially in certain parts that I'm not going to spoil for the video, but there was just certain key narrative parts in Val's story that really deeply connected to me. And even if we are two people from different walks of life, the universal struggle that is very human with the character, I think, is what really made me this passionate to want to double the size and to actually stretch out as much of his legs as possible to stand into whatever player wants to have a pirate companion, buddy, lover, whatever in their life in this playthrough.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. I always wanted Val's story to feel like a human story first, and then all the fantasy, pirate, criminal, excitement, adventure trappings to come along with that, but not be the heart of the character. I wanted him to stand on his own, and I just love that you embrace that.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that I almost feel like I might write this down as another tip. I almost want to have in the tip for voice actors, for any role that is similar in size to this, they should just almost erase the fact that Val is a quote-unquote companion follower mod, right? Because while, yes, mechanically speaking in the script, I do have to know that the player exists, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the performance, and I think what you demanded in particular for Val, you really gave a lot of risk and a risk assessment, I would even say, very accurately, that players wanted to have someone have their story with them. You know what I mean? So you gave a lot of room for Val to get the spotlight and not just be like a random background cookie cutter, maybe bag of chips when it comes to a personality flavor, where Val could have easily just been like, oh, well, I'm such a suave, sexy man that just wants to go and flirt with you every 10 seconds. No, you didn't do that. You had him, with his narrative, approach the player, literally just constantly be like, hey, we need to talk. Hey, I need to talk to you about this. And even in many parts of the vanilla Skyrim campaigns, where, it's not even about his quest. It's not even about his story. It's just him being like, hey, I don't like what you did to that person. What you're doing is crazy. Just that reactivity and the ability to do that, I think, is really something that I don't know if you get it a lot in Skyrim modding, because I'm very new to the Skyrim modding scene. I'm more so in my little tent fort in the Fallout modding. But it's something very refreshing that I have never really seen much, sadly, in the scope of companion narrative storytelling and even, of course, script implementation.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot. One of the things that was important to me as a player in thinking about what kind of companion mod I would want to play is that the role-playing perspective of the game was continued. I've played some really great companion mods that in many ways are visual novels, where there are fairly limited player choices or limited player archetypes, and you're inhabiting that archetype for the duration of the story, which is great, and they're wonderful stories and mods that I really enjoy playing, but it doesn't always capture what I, as a gamer with an original character, want to play. So having played RPGs for age test, a long time, shall we say. There are many games that really did that well that I was inspired by over the years. And I wanted to the extent that I could cover as a single developer on an indie project, I wanted to preserve roleplay archetypes for the player. And I wanted to, as a writing practice, always support 3 archetypes. So early on I came up with, here's the span, the spectrum of responses of the type of character that plausibly Val would be close to, right? You could have the innocent archetype, somebody who is a really fundamentally good person, and Val is a guy who's not been around many fundamentally good people, and it just sort of knocks him on his heels and makes him rethink a lot of things. You just can't, it's the kind of person who just kind of too good for this world a little bit, a very wholesome, sweet, lawful character. And then there's that kindred spirit, that fellow rogue, someone who is on Val's level, who you can truly see as an equal. That's like right in the center there, the thief playthrough, the fellow rogue. There's not a lot of criminal focused, mods in Skyrim, but I just love the whole Thieves Guild quest line. It's got its weaknesses in writing, but the characters and the idea of it, I like sneaking around and stealing stuff in Skyrim, and I wanted to support that. And then there's the other end. There's the one who's like, this guy is lying to me and he is full of crap and I am calling him on it. And I'm just not taking it from him. And Val is someone who is, by force of personality and charm and wit, has been able to strong arm and steamroll most people in his life, except this person. So that's these 3 points of people who are going to set Val back on his heels, make him take that person seriously as a friend, as a true companion, not just a fly-by-night lover type of interaction. Like they're going to prompt some character change in him. So whenever I would write dialogue for Val, I would say, okay, how are these 3 archetypes going to fit into this situation? Because I want to preserve player agency, I want to preserve player RP choices, and not metagame the player. And then Val can just respond in different ways, dynamically, off of these things, so that there's replay value, so that people feel like Val remembers what he said to them, and you get this, I hope, interactive experience where Val starts to come alive and remember what you've said to him and how you treated him.
Yeah, and I just gotta, I know a lot of this is gonna almost feel like, oh, this is gonna be Crimson for like maybe 20, 30 minutes, just commending you, and then like be like, oh, you're just such a great,
we can just
such
have
an
a love
amazing
fist
writer,
and
but
praise each other for an hour.
Yeah. But I do have to highlight the importance of how you did think outside the box of what Val was intended for in terms of mechanically the kind of companion he is. You could have easily just had it to where the reactivity was for players and only a thief-only playthrough or a stealth-only playthrough. Or maybe like at most you'd be like, okay, well, this guy's going to do this. But the fact that, and spoiler or not, I don't know, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'll just probably cut it out at most. The fact that he actually goes out and pickpockets for the player.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've never seen a companion mod, even a Bethesda, honestly, like companion, like an actual, like by Bethesda work, do that.
So
like that reactivity of...
Yeah, so this gets back to show don't tell, right? So Val's a criminal. Is he going to tell you he's a criminal? Is he going to tell you he's a smooth talking rogue? No, boring. He's going to just do it. So, spoilers, right? So right out of the gate, he's in the middle of some kind of heist that has gone awry, and he's going to manipulate the player or strong arm the player into getting it back on track with him. And so you see him lying through his teeth to the captain of the guard, right out of the gate, getting you involved, aiding, abetting a crime for which he has already been incarcerated. And then, down the road, he will steal items for you for a quest solution. He will pickpocket if asked, and but it's not all crime too. Like he will nobly use himself as the bait in another part of the quest too, because he feels like he should take that risk. So he's got some growth in there too. I totally interrupted you though, so I should let you speak about it from your perspective.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I think the most I was trying to say at the very tail end was just that it just feels really interesting how reactive you could push the script for the creation kit to actually have a companion do things on their own accord. I'm sure this was always there and always able to happen, but I don't think anyone ever tried that before, at least not to my knowledge. I could be really ignorant on this topic, but
I've taken some inspiration from companions of the past. So one of the interesting things about Skyrim is that it's such a long-running game with so many mod projects that I'm really able to stand on the shoulders of giants to continue to evolve companions. So I definitely have to give credit to the many modders who have come before and their great work. So very old companion mod for Skyrim, Vilja, is a character that has a lot of interactive and dynamic features, and knowing what was possible with Vilja, with Inigo, for his great, incredible variety and sheer amount of dialogue that changes from playthrough to playthrough. You know, Lucian, just with how incredibly well put together he is as a mod from a coding perspective, and Joseph Russell's amazing tutorials and how he has reached out to help others in a very accessible way learn how to mod. There's some great coalitions of other modders that work together who are all working on custom followers, and I've been able to connect with those people and the wonderful projects that they're working on. So in terms of my learning how to code, for Skyrim, learning how to increase my skills, learning how to make things run smoothly, I'm really grateful for the support and the interaction of the community, and everybody working together and helping each other is what has made Skyrim modding so great for so long, and I've really enjoyed being a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, for this topic, I'm going to kind of switch over a little bit. I want to actually talk a lot about more of the creative meetings we had, because I feel like while we basically indirectly said it, I don't think we directly said the actual process it took for us to be on the same page. We had a really strong chemistry at the very start to where we didn't really need to talk a lot about like the approach.
Right.
But definitely, I still have pinned in our very Discord messages here the notes I had to write.
Well, Val's combat style, how did Val sound under different circumstances? That was an early meeting topic we spent a lot of time on, if you want to walk through how that went.
Yeah. So I'm going to go crudely by just the notes I took with us. And then obviously what I'm going to want you to do, because I think you have probably a better memory than I do, is walk me through what your ideas were when I was compiling these notes. So
the funny thing is, I gotta
Mm-hmm.
break it and say the funny thing is, one thing that was new to me in working with an actor was I never so I think in the beginning, our first conversation was, you said to me, I've never done a project this big before. And I said, guess what? Me neither. We'll figure it out together. So
Yeah.
I had never directed anyone at anything before. So, you know, a lot of it was I had stuff in my head that I had to figure out how to articulate out loud, you know, to another person in a way that was comprehensible. So that was a process for me.
Gotcha. So, I probably because I'm kind of dumb when it comes to, you know, foresight of pinning all my meeting notes, I do have a couple abstract parts. For example, if you go through the pins, I have a face of George. I have the face of the character from Ocean's 11, where I'm talking about a technique that I've quoted before with one parody actor. His name is Frank Caliendo, and he does the pizza slice method, where he actually, for his voice, he'll modify the way that his eyebrows, lips, and like, I wouldn't say his cheeks or anything else, but more so the eyebrows and lips, how they parse and like formulate words. So for this, my prototype for how I got into Val was that Val's eyes needed to be looking razor sharp at all times when I did those lines, always analyzing. His mouth was always a slight grin, even when ajar, or faking other emotions with the muscles to dissuade his victim. And then his head would always be in a submissive tilt on purpose. So like he'd always tilt his head a little bit, just as like a ruse, if you will.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm a very, you know, laid back guy. Yeah, like that kind of ordeal. Because he's a swindler. He's a charlatan. He's the guy that like, he'll make you feel homey and safe, and then like as he puts his arms around you, he just dug through your pockets without knowing.
Absolutely.
You know, like
We talked in the beginning about how when Val is lying, he should plausibly fool the player, that Val is good at lying, and it gets back to that commitment. Like there's no layer of irony there. Like Val is a good liar, and it should not be with a wink and a nod like, hey, I'm lying. One of my early beta testers before anything was voiced, played through the scam scene in the beginning and was completely in it hook, line, and sinker, only to realize they had been involved in committing a crime. And it was something I was so happy about. I really wanted to preserve that with the voice acting, that just this idea of, you know, much in the vein of a professional who is very methodical and calculating and callous about how they manipulate people. Val had acquired that skill as a con man. And so we have Danny from Ocean's 11, you know, brilliant performance by, oh my God, why am I drawing a blank on George Clooney? Brilliant performance by George Clooney in Ocean's 11, right? As Danny Ocean, as, you know, this sort of composite approach of influences from Rusty and Danny, the two lead con men in Ocean's 11.
Mm-hmm. You know what's actually interesting when we think about the meetings quite a bit is the fact that on top of that, one of the many interesting things I had to really think about was how Val was he wasn't stoic, he was very calm and collected during battle in most instances.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a rarity.
Yeah, we went through, you know, so his influences are, for me, coming out of that 80s, 90s action hero, but you got to think of the subset of not the Arnold Schwarzenegger cartoony over the top, but more of the John McClane or Indiana Jones who gets scared, gets injured, has to be clever, occasionally gets their ass kicked, you know, isn't a superhero, but is a tough guy, someone who's very capable, but is still a human in the fight, you know. Someone who, if they punch someone, you would see them hurt their hand. They would be shaking it out after the fight. They might hide it, but it's there. You know, somebody who can experience fear and alarm, but also that element of, you know, for me, someone with a martial arts background, when you're fighting and you're committed to it, you kind of put everything else on the back burner. And for somebody like Val, I felt like fighting might be one of the most honest things he ever does. Of just trying to kill somebody and stay alive, as opposed to everything else he's constantly manipulating or analyzing, looking for weaknesses. He is committed to one single task.
And I think that actually goes into another, I don't know if I will put this as another tip or just like a post-analyst part of the video, but I almost feel like what makes Val an interesting character is that in a lot of ways, his humanity, while also being, you know, of Dunmer background, spoiler alert, in case nobody knew, dude's not really a Nord. He's like a half Nord, and he actually is more Dunmer as a
culturally
influence. But Val comes off more as a very lizard-brained chameleon in terms of how he's had to survive, he's had to adapt. And in a lot of ways, it's like you can tell that it's the mask he wears, and it's like he has two kinds of masks already on at the same time. The first mask, which is that he believes or he wants to believe himself capable of not getting that close to people, you know, because he has a lot of abandonment issues, he's been through a lot of abuse. And then the second mask is obviously him swindling people. But beneath those two masks is actually a very hurt person, a very traumatized child at the end of it all, I would say. And I think that was such a beautiful delivery of your writing and me being able to tap into that from my own emotional experience with certain feelings in my life and certain tragedies I've went through, where I think a lot of people, it's almost like you could have easily seen Val in a different life be a villain, right? Be a tragic villain. But instead, there was always like a glimmer of hope inside, a light, an inherent good that he has that made him the player's friend, right? That made him able to still believe in some sense of humanity, even if he swindles half of them and steals all their shit.
Yeah, I love how you connected with that and saw that in the character. And that was one of the things that made me very committed to working with you as a creative and writing partner, and not just from the acting and performance perspective, is because you got at a very fundamental level what I was going for with the character. Because, coming from my own background, Val is not a self-insert. He's not a one-to-one, but you also got to write what you know. So I amalgamated a lot of life experiences, the experiences of people who are close to me, and put them all together to write Val's story. And he's a fully fictional character, but a lot of his elements are written very much from the heart for both you and I. And, I hope that it is something that a lot of people are able to connect with about the character, because I think we're all hurting, and I think we all wear masks to protect ourselves. And that's a fundamental human story of how do you deal with vulnerability, and what in your life and the people in your life, how do they help you become more comfortable with vulnerability and acceptance, versus when do you need to have that armor on, and what happens when you take it off, and how can you really connect with someone. We all want to be connected to other people. We don't want to feel like we're alone. And Val has had to struggle a lot on his own for survival. And in meeting the player, he's got an opportunity to change those connections and change the course of his emotional life and really heal a lot. But it's not like the player is quote unquote saving him, because we talked about that too, right? Val is doing the work on himself. We're just giving him a catalyst. And you get to observe that with a lot of his quest beats, right? So he does take center stage sometimes, but the player's not sitting there idle. Also, from a gameplay perspective, I have a low tolerance for sitting around watching NPCs talk to each other. So I always want to get the player back in the action. And you were good about that too. When there would be a long monologue, I would say to you, like, "Oh gosh, Val's really talking a lot," and you'd say to me, "Well, get the player in," and that would really help.
Right. So I'm going to say that we're going to get to the last quote-unquote topic. And the last quote-unquote topic, whether tip or not, is guilt and redemption. I think this is probably, depending on how hard it is to navigate around spoilers, this is probably going to be the most spoiler part of the video.
Duly warned. Spoilers.
Yeah. I really think what made Val's story and narrative, and like the very thing I want voice actors, if they find themselves in any parallel to a gig like this, a project like this, is being able to recognize that the person you're voicing has done things that they regret and things that keep them up at night, and that it is okay to tap into real life things that you might have regretted from personal experience. And I definitely love how Val, you could tell, past like the two masks I talked about, past all this stuff, when you get to the direct pained child, the child that was hurt, that he cannot face himself and say, I love myself, through the things that he has endured, experienced, witnessed, and what he blames himself for, what he thinks he should have done better. So yeah, that's just kind of my piece. You can kind of bounce off that if you want. Yeah,
I agree with that a lot. I think creatively, you and I developed a good push and pull. From being from different walks of life, I feel like I tend to be the more optimistic side of things are going to be okay. And you tend to pull creatively more toward sometimes things aren't okay. Not every story gets a happy ending. That's not how life works. And, not that I'm all sunshine and roses, and not that you're all doom and gloom, but I think we've sort of carved out those spaces with our little team of two working on the character to have that cause him to be very grounded. Like you and I both course correct each other when we get too dark or too cheesy. And I know you've helped me dial back some cheese, right? And I've also told you, like, we can't depress the player, okay? We cannot depress the player. Val has to still be, okay at the end of this.
Yeah, true.
So I like that about the dynamic. And I would encourage any writer and director, if you find yourself working with a creative person, right? Like actors are creative people, invite them to the table. Allow them the opportunity to fully exercise their creativity for the betterment of your project. You are in my opinion, hamstringing yourself on a project if you don't allow other creative voices into your space. Groups of people will always produce a better project than someone working in a vacuum. You exponentially get more ideas when you've got someone to play off of and work with, and you start to shape things in a bigger direction than they could be, to let them grow. So that would be my tip, is let creative people be creative and embrace that. And embrace where it can take you, and embrace where it can take your characters, because they will be so much richer and better for those other perspectives.
I 100% agree with that. I think I've made a couple of crude terms to try to explain the phenomenon of mostly in the scene of mod authors that do it all by themselves. And while they are impressive with what they display, the mods that tend to flop, for lack of a better word, is not because like, oh, they weren't able to script this well, or they didn't have a good idea to begin with. It's more often the fact that I've seen certain mods flop due to the fact that they were too self-insertive and not able to bounce out of their own perspective of what they were enthralled with when making the mod. I think in any kind of medium, any kind of creativity, story, or whatever, you have to be able to jump out of yourself to see how this looks when you, the person, are the viewer, the reader, the watcher, or the player. And I think the best way is, making it a team effort, inviting more voices rather than just your own.
Yeah, and you can certainly do that solo, and there's definitely examples of mods in the Fallout scene, the Skyrim scene, what have you, that are just amazing that people do as solo projects. Mm-hmm. But it gets easier when you have others, or someone just to say, hey, did you consider it this way, or what if we did that? And just as a writer, it's hard to share your creation, absolutely, and it's gets into a control thing. But if you find a good creative partner that you trust with your character, it can really unlock a lot of things. I think I said to you early on that because Val comes I think how did I phrase it? I think it was like, unfortunately for Val, he's only as smooth and charming as I am, and on a good day it takes me a while, so getting some extra mileage there. That Val's smoothness and charm is at least collectively produced by two people thinking about it very hard, is to his advantage.
Yeah,
Val is way cooler than I will ever be.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that too. Even though I voiced Val, I'm like, damn, dude, he is like a real sex icon from what people keep talking about with him. It's crazy. like
I said, like 30 seconds of Val charm is like, I thought about that for like a week. Mm-hmm. And how many takes did you do? Like 8, 10?
Yeah, when I first said, I'm just gonna be real. When I first said some of the romance lines, I'm like, I am not really a romantic kind of person. So
that might be a good thing to talk about at some point, if we're not both mortified of like just trying to tap into that, because for writing, it takes a while. I can't force it. Sometimes the things come to me, and other times I'm like, I'm just gonna come back to that in a few days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say this, and this will be the only spoiler. Obviously, this will be like maybe a addendum tip or whatever. But for romance note lines, for voice actors that ever get a character like Val, embrace the cheese and the fan service. Just do it. Just embrace it. That's gonna be the point of it.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of, ride that line real hard between smooth and cringe. Like, find it, and you're gonna go over it sometimes. And there were a few where you messaged me back. You're like, this is crap. And you're like, I'm recording it anyway, but it's crap. And I got it back. I'm like, you're right, it's crap. I'm gonna cut the line. But just do it. Just do it. Write the crap, write the cheese. You can always dial it back. It is easier to dial things back than to push them up, right? Like, I would always rather be in the position of dialing it back than trying to get more and having it feel flat.
All I'm gonna say too, and this is not even related to the romance line. I think the funniest line I think I ever read, and I think it was because I remember we were bouncing off each other of what is Val attracted to in terms of like his ideal man and woman.
Oh yeah.
And then like what's probably the only, let's say, culture or race in Elder Scrolls that he hasn't really been around as much despite his piratey time. And just the line, I'm only make this one spoiler for Khajiit players. There's a certain line that he says a very cliche quote, which is curiosity killed and he sees your character as a Khajiit, and he goes, "That's probably racist. I shouldn't say that."
There were so many takes on that. I struggled to pick one because I love so as a writer, I will say, if you let your voice actors ad-lib, let them do it. Just get off your high horse. Don't be married to your writing. If you're finding that your voice actors want to play around with what you wrote and are laughing and are inspired, like, please run with that. Because I got so many gold lines that were, you started with what I had and then you just played around with it. And then 4 or 5 takes later, this gem of a line with genuine emotion where I had to use it in a mod, including, what I wrote as a prompt versus where we ended with the Khajiit thing. It was perfect. So that's my tip. Writers, let your voice actors ad-lib.
And my tip is voice actors. If you're able to be like me and you do improv stuff quite a bit, do not overshoot it and do not be greedy. Because there was some times, I'm not gonna lie, I know I did a little bit of that, a little too much, and you're like, please stick to the script, please. I'm begging you. It was definitely the lines I wanted to have him keep saying for whenever he couldn't pick a lock. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And all I'm gonna say is he talks a lot about how he'd rather have certain things happen to him from a bunch of trolls than to fuck up the lock.
Yeah. So there's definitely the grounding aspect of ad libs. You will get way too silly with it, and you have to dial it back. And there is a director's role for, just keeping it grounded. But I will say, too, in terms of working on this 8 months, I don't know how many hours of audio we both listened to in terms of the lines.
Oh,
but,
God,
just keeping it fresh, keeping your creative spark going, you got to be silly. Or it just turns into a slog. So, leaving those outtakes in, being silly, going too far with it, it's worth it because it just breaks it up.
Also, and this is a heavy emphasis. I don't know when I'm going to put it in the video, but you are going to be voicing a lot. Vocal warm-ups are so needed, and there were plenty of times when I would just wake up first thing in the morning, go do the script, and then go do my typical day job or whatever. And because I didn't take the time to warm up as I first woke up, it was just, I got myself into so many unnecessary headaches, the one of which is a very famous series of fuck-ups about pronouncing Forsworn over and over and over. And it was so comedic to me how much I kept fucking it up.
We need the Forsworn
fuck
remix.
it. The fans need to just fucking listen to this shit. I need them to understand how a New York half Italian dude is gonna fuck up pronouncing something as simple as Forsworn, because I keep saying Forsworn, and it's like my accent's coming out, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Can I just no?
Well, spoiler alert, you don't actually talk like Val with your natural speaking voice. It's a bit of a shift.
Yeah, I know.
Who
A
knew?
lot of people.
Who knew?
I really hope a lot of people don't expect me that when they ever meet me either online or in person that I'm going to be like, hello there, I'm a relic hunter, and this is how I am all the day. 101.5 the box. I don't talk like that.
There were some other funny outtakes that crept in there because you were doing other auditions and voice acting roles over the long course of working on Val, and sometimes finding back in on his character voice, you'd leave me a few outtakes because I just had to laugh. Like, I think there was a country accent character you were doing on another project. So we had a few.
Yeah. Yeah, there was because I was in the middle of a couple of New Vegas mods, which I'm not going to spoil yet, but there was a couple of New Vegas mods where I had to do a southern accent. So it took me quite a bit to get in that headspace from in between because I'm not a native southern person. I just moved down, I would say, to the south maybe, and I'm from fucking New York. So when I'm trying to like really get the accent right, and I'm just kind of borrowing dialects and accents of maybe Georgian with a Texas like mannerism and whatnot, just to, you know, poorly slopped together one. I think I was decent. And then I had to do Val. Oh my God. Yeah. It would just come out in certain lines. And I forgot what lines in particular. But I remember
saved it. I think I've got it. Yeah.
Yeah, please send that for the video because I'm going to showcase that, and I'm going to have people recognize that possibly in the future we're going to have a cowboy expansion pack.
Yeehaw! The other subcategory, this stopped happening later. This was like an early phenomenon, but there is an element of getting your voice deeper and raspier where you just hit Geralt of Rivia a couple of times to the point where
yeah, people.
I'm like, we're not doing a Geralt impression. Stop! It's too good.
You know, it's so funny. I have a very high-pitched voice, as you could hear it, and I'm like, I still don't know how to, like, purposely do that. That's the problem. I don't know how I was doing that.
Tragedy.
Get a voice file of that, too, so that way I can...
Oh, God, let me find him. God. I kept, I think I got this in here somewhere. Oh, yeah, okay. Actually, I kept the Geralt compilation. I'm going to drop it in right now.
Drop it in and put it in the Discord community, which you should join, by the way. All right.
I might have to we might have to do a supercut of these.
God.
Well, if you think about how many hours of audio you sent me, those are just the ones where I was like, Jesus Christ. There were probably a few others where I was like, we're getting into Geralt territory and less Val.
Oh, it's like whenever I wanted to voice Val as pissed off, or like maybe he was just fed up. Yeah, I do understand how that can happen. Where, you know, my idea was because Val already kind of speaks like this, I thought very pissed off Val would be more down here. But I'm realizing this is more fucking wannabe Geralt of Rivia. Hey, who knows? We'll make a crossover maybe with Witcher 3 modding.
That's right, crossover, some Witcher 3 modules. You know, we found gold here.
Yeah, exactly.
Doug Corkle better look out.
He's just gonna be like the Mr. Lee of no, he's gonna be the Stan Lee of cameos in every fucking.
How many IPs can I stick Val into?
Yep. Okay, so I think we've reached at least somewhat of the conclusion of like the point-by-point system in terms of how I'm probably going to format the video.
Okay.
With that said, I usually have obviously last speaking words with, you know, what you want to bring out for people who might watch this, or just like what other projects we have planned if you want to advertise that stuff. So yeah, I'll let you go with what are your final words for the people that might watch it.
Oh geez, you know, no pressure. Well, I think I've said, you know, in the course of our conversation, everything I wanted to touch on about the shared creative process and the team. But it's been, and without getting too sappy about it, because that's just not me, I'm really grateful to have met you as a friend, and I am excited to work on other projects with you going forward. I'm sure that we will be. We've talked about some ideas a lot. One of the great things about working with you is we always have ideas. There's no shortage of those. And some of those ideas have coalesced into a couple of expansion ideas for Val. And we will be getting started on writing and developing those ideas later this year, and that's pretty exciting to think about. So more Val content will be coming.
All right, awesome. For me, I'd just like to say for those who are watching, depending on how long or short the video is, I obviously couldn't have been able to make this video without Axarien accepting me for the role. So, you know, thank you, Axarien, for literally being not only a life raft in the middle of this weird little profession I do, which is voice acting for mods and hopefully games, but also just I've said a lot of this in a sappy little comment I put on the Nexus page, but I'll reiterate in less copy-paste format. I do think your project has actually changed a lot of my perspective on writing and voice acting and the creative work that it takes to make a proper story. And I think for whatever I plan to do in the future, game design, voice acting, etc., you are always going to be the main foundation for how I do that. Because I think a lot of what you've provided me in these 8 months of working with you has been phenomenal, has been literally like the thing I always wanted in terms of what I was seeking. And for anyone that is curious about, I'd say what to emulate out of this video, me personally, I would say more so if none of this conversation or the video layout has really given you guys a clear idea, rather than just being that of a voice actor, a writer, I think the truth of the matter that you should emulate is how Axarien put her heart and soul into this, and that no matter what, even if it's on deaf ears, even if it's never fully appreciated, you should start doing that, because you never know, years from now, months from now, decades from now even, how that will pay off. And I think this project, Val, and many projects after, is going to be finally where I think you deserve to have that payoff. And I think hopefully, knock on wood, 5 years from now or whatever, we'll look back at this and be like, wow, we did a lot better. And also, we did still one of the many things that we're proud of.
That really means a tremendous amount to hear you say that. In terms of putting the whole heart in, I just don't know any other way to be. And to try to look for the best in people and what they can bring and what will make the project better while also bringing that enjoyment for the people working on it is something I've been taught to look for by my mentors over the years. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to pay it forward with you, my friend. And I'm also incredibly grateful and thankful for all the kind words that people have had who have downloaded and are playing the mod and are excited about Val and bringing him to their game. And I am over the moon happy and thankful for the support that Val's growing fans have brought him. I'm just thrilled with how many people who have loved him. When you make an indie project, especially for a mod as old, a game as old as Skyrim, you wonder, gosh, am I making this for myself and like 5 people? But for so many people to connect with him is really a dream come true, and I'm incredibly grateful and thankful for all of
that. The last words I'll say, and before we stop this recording, is for you guys interested, if you want to interact with the community, there is a Discord link I'm going to be putting in the video description. Please join it if you're really enthralled with the work and also want to contribute with other fans. And of course, me and Axarien will be there. I really deeply appreciate the fan art that I've seen from beta testers, like literal test players. That was wild to see before the mod even got out. And I hope to see, obviously, more of that by time of this video being released. And, of course, just in general, how talented a lot of the fans really are. It's like, really wholesome, and it just makes me cry every single time. And I'm a little overstimulated by how many tears I've shed.
Well, yeah, we got to definitely put a pin on the emotional sappiness, or this will just be like the love fest, hearts flying around, we love this project kind of thing. But I'm really glad about it. Like it was really fun to work on, and work, hobby, what have you, it should be fun, right? We're doing this for fun, and life is short. Even paid work, which this is not for me, should be fun.
Gotcha. All right, and I think I'm going to end the recording there. All right.
So yeah, if you stuck around this long in the video, thank you guys so much for the love and appreciation. I've said it many times in the how I voiced a pirate in Skyrim, but it is ridiculous how much love and appreciation has been had in less than, I want to say, 3 months now, as of recording. We've gotten over 500 endorsements. we've definitely reached the milestone of 70K views, and just the ridiculous amount of downloads in general is incredible. All the videos that I'm going to start probably popping on the screen right here of the top 10 best Skyrim mods to start off 2024 with, that was incredible and insane. All I could say is me and Axarien are not going to take this for granted, and we're going to be riding this year's momentum with the success that we got because of you guys, hard and strong. And we're going to make sure that there is more content to come, and make sure that it's everything that the fans want and need. And we have been very receptive and very active with fans that come to our Discord. So if you would like to voice or interact with that community, please join. It is in the description. And yeah, that's been the video. Hopefully you enjoy the 1990s VHS audio. If not, trust me, the second behind the scenes of the expansion to come will probably be a lot better in terms of audio. It's been Crimson Gray. I hope you have a good day.